50 Hours in Darkness. A Journey from Despair to Resilience. I once heard that our most difficult moments, though shrouded in darkness, can lead us to unexpected revelations and renewal. This story dives into a woman's journey, one that starts from deep despair and rises through an astonishing discovery of resilience and strength. Her experience, a 50-hour coma, was a reset button that allowed her to see life with fresh eyes. She came out of it forever changed, realizing the things that once pulled her down might also be what eventually help her rise. I want to take you on this journey of hers, one filled with examples and personal insights, where challenges transform into the pillars of strength. This isn't just about her, it's a reminder of how we all can find light in the darkest of places. From a young age, Lisa was no stranger to hardship. Born into a family that struggled financially, she was the eldest of 4 siblings. Her parents valued her brothers over her and her sisters, believing that boys would bring more honor and success to the family. She faced endless days and nights doing chores, helping her mother, and sacrificing her dreams to meet their financial demands. Yet, Lisa was a bright child with dreams of her own. She wanted to study and pursue her ambitions, imagining a life outside her family's restrictive views. The pressures from her family, however, held her back, particularly from a father who believed that education wasn't necessary for a girl. A poignant memory she shared with me was about a simple desire for a digital watch she'd seen her friends wear. For weeks, she saved every penny, going without lunches and taking on extra chores. Finally, she bought the watch and cherished it, a symbol of her small victory over her circumstances. But one day, she found her younger brother wearing it. When she tried to take it back, her father intervened, ultimately forcing her to give up her precious possession. This incident left a deep scar, a sense of helplessness and frustration over things she couldn't control. Lisa's life continued with more sacrifices. At the age of 18, she begged her parents to let her attend university. Her mother was sympathetic but couldn't support her, given their mounting debts. Her father was unmoved, silencing her with harsh words and eventually forcing her into a low-paying factory job to help with family expenses. Working long hours, barely earning enough to sustain herself, Lisa shouldered the debt burden, often feeling her life was slipping away from her. Her dreams seemed like distant echoes, buried under the weight of financial obligations and family pressures. She longed for freedom, for a sense of purpose beyond paying bills and appeasing debt collectors who would come to her door regularly, intimidating her with threats. At one point, Lisa rented a small room, hoping to find solace away from her family's suffocating environment. But life continued its harsh rhythm. She'd face constant harassment from debt collectors, who trashed her belongings and demanded payment. Even friendships began to fade, as she distanced herself from others out of fear they'd be dragged into her troubles. Her room became both a refuge and a prison, a space where she wrestled with loneliness, sleepless nights, and thoughts that spiraled deeper into despair. Then came a brief respite. Jason. He was a kind soul who entered her life unexpectedly, bringing warmth and kindness. They met at a local cafe she often visited for a few moments of escape from her grim reality. Jason became her companion, her confidant, a bright light in an otherwise bleak existence. He was attentive, supportive, and encouraged her to believe in a better future. She allowed herself to dream again, imagining a life where she could be free from the shadows of her past. For a while, she felt genuinely happy. Jason gave her a reason to keep going, to endure for the sake of the life they could build together. But as quickly as this light appeared, it dimmed. Just when Lisa thought she could rely on Jason, her company went bankrupt, and she was once again jobless. The pressures mounted as debt collectors became more aggressive. In the midst of this turmoil, she discovered Jason was seeing another woman. This betrayal shattered her, leaving her more lost than ever. The man she had poured her heart into, the one she had leaned on during her darkest moments, was no longer there for her. Overcome with despair, Lisa locked herself in her room, spiraling further into depression. In a moment of hopelessness, Lisa attempted to end her suffering, taking an overdose. What followed was a surreal experience. In her 50-hour coma, she found herself revisiting memories from her life, the simple joys, the innocent laughter, and even the pain of past struggles. She relived moments with her family, both heartwarming and heartbreaking, and felt the intense love her mother had always shown her. Even in difficult times, In that suspended state, she saw flashes of people she loved, people who had hurt her, and moments that once seemed trivial but were now magnified. When Lisa awoke, something inside her had shifted. She realized the depths of love her mother held for her and understood that her struggles weren't merely to support a family but to forge a strength she hadn't known existed within her. Life had tested her in countless ways. Yet somehow, she had survived. She began to see her life with a fresh perspective, understanding that the value of life extended beyond her immediate circumstances. She decided to embrace life, not just for herself, but for her mother and siblings who depended on her. Returning to her daily life wasn't easy, but she came back with a determination she hadn't felt before. Lisa took on multiple jobs, saved every penny, and focused on clearing her father's debt. Slowly, she reconnected with old friends and even allowed herself to make new ones, something she hadn't dared to do before. She also began volunteering, helping others who struggled as she had, finding solace and a sense of purpose in bringing hope to those in despair. Each connection, each small act of kindness, reinforced her resolve to live fully. Through her journey, Lisa found an unexpected resilience. She learned that life is a blend of joy and sorrow, of highs and lows, and that these experiences shape who we become. Her father, too, began to change. He sought counseling, taking steps to mend his ways, and their relationship, once strained, began to heal. Over time, the family debt became more manageable, and Lisa found that with each day, her burden grew a little lighter. In reflecting on Lisa's story, we're reminded that life's hardships, though painful, can be transformative. She emerged from her coma with a profound appreciation for life, understanding that every struggle holds a lesson. The journey taught her that true strength comes from enduring and overcoming. She found beauty even in the struggle, in the connections she made, and the kindness she extended to others. This resilience, this willingness to keep moving forward, is something we all can carry with us. In life, we may face moments that seem impossible to bear. We may find ourselves at the edge of despair, questioning our worth or our purpose. But if we hold on, if we allow ourselves to look for light even in the darkest moments, we may discover a strength we didn't know existed within us. Lisa's story teaches us that life, with all its unpredictability, is precious. It's filled with opportunities to grow, to heal, and to create a future we can be proud of. In the end, Lisa's journey from despair to resilience is a testament to the human spirit's strength. Life may not be easy, but it is always worth living. Through pain, we learn. Through hardship, we grow. And through love, we find meaning. Let Lisa's story inspire you to embrace each day, to find hope in the hardest of times, and to believe in the power of resilience. The Cost of Ambition, a story of friendship, betrayal, and self-discovery. The story of Alice and her best friend didn't begin with broken promises or strained relationships. It started with an unbreakable friendship between two young women with big dreams and an even bigger loyalty to one another. Their journey, however, is one that dives into the complexities of love, ambition, and the haunting choices that come when life becomes a balancing act. In college, Alice and her best friend were inseparable. They shared late nights filled with laughter, dreams of careers that would set them apart, and a deep sense of commitment to each other. They had sworn to be each other's family through thick and thin. But life, as it often does, had its twists. After graduation, they both married and started families. But it was clear that Alice's ambition outpaced her friend's desire for a balanced, family-focused life. When Alice landed a high-stakes corporate job that demanded extensive travel and long hours, it didn't take long for things to shift. Ken, her husband, struggled to accept the new demands of her job. He missed the simple life they once shared, a life where they had time for each other, family dinners, and weekends spent together. Over time, Ken's frustrations grew into resentment as he watched Alice miss family events, important conversations, and, ultimately, the emotional intimacy that held their marriage together. Alice, on the other hand, was torn between her growing responsibilities and the people who once made up her world. Her best friend saw the toll this was taking on Alice, but loyalty kept her close. Even as Alice's behavior grew erratic and unpredictable, her friend believed that the girl she had once shared dorm rooms and dreams with was still in there. But this belief was tested in ways she could never have foreseen. One particular night marked the beginning of a new chapter. one that would shatter trust and loyalty alike. Alice, caught up in a wave of corporate socializing, drank herself into a state of oblivion. What happened next was something her best friend could hardly believe. Ken, bringing their daughter home, found Alice with two younger men. Their home turned into a scene of reckless indulgence. Empty bottles littered the floor, and the chaos was palpable. Alice's husband kept his composure for the sake of their daughter, but the damage was irreparable. That night solidified Ken's decision. He would divorce Alice and seek custody of their daughter, feeling she was no longer the mother or partner he had once known. When Alice's best friend learned of this, her heart broke, not just for Alice, but for the people caught in the fallout, especially the young girl who once called Alice Mom. This child, witnessing her family break apart, found herself drawn to Ken for the stability he offered. The friend wanted to be there for Alice, to pull her from what was clearly a destructive path. Yet her husband felt differently. He wanted her to distance herself from Alice, fearing her friend's choices could influence their own life. This tension placed her friend in an agonizing dilemma. Despite her husband's objections, Alice's friend met with her, hoping to reach the person she once knew. But the conversation didn't go as planned. Alice was defensive, justifying her actions as her way of blowing off steam after years of hard work. Her friend could barely recognize the woman before her. The Alice she knew would never have risked her family or her own well-being for a night of reckless behavior. Alice, it seemed, had rewritten their shared history to fit her current narrative, painting herself as a martyr who had sacrificed everything for a family that was ungrateful. Her words cut deep, leaving her friend questioning if the woman she had once considered a sister was truly lost to her ambition. A shocking revelation came soon after. Alice had reconnected with her daughter's biological father, a man who had caused her immense pain in the past. This man had abandoned Alice during her pregnancy, leaving her to fend for herself. Now, after all these years, he was back, claiming he had changed, that he wanted a place in their daughter's life. Alice's friend was horrified. She reminded Alice of the trauma this man had inflicted upon her. But her words fell on deaf ears. Alice was blinded by her pain and desire for companionship, willing to believe that he had turned over a new leaf. When Alice's friend confronted her about her decisions, Alice's response was indifferent. She dismissed the warnings, choosing instead to focus on the fantasy of a man who claimed he had changed. Her friend felt betrayed, not just because of Alice's decisions but because it seemed as if she was erasing all the pain and progress she had made. The memories of nights spent supporting Alice, of picking her up after heartbreak, felt meaningless in the face of her choices. This was the moment of realization for Alice's friend. She knew that her loyalty, as unwavering as it had been, could not save Alice from herself. She could no longer stand by and watch Alice spiral down a path of destruction, especially when it endangered her daughter and the family stability she had once valued. After a final, painful conversation, Alice's friend made the decision to distance herself. She loved Alice, but the woman she had become was a stranger. It was a decision that shattered her, leaving her questioning the very foundation of their friendship. In the end, it wasn't just a story of betrayal or hurt, it was a lesson in boundaries. In recognizing that sometimes, no matter how much you love someone, you cannot save them from the choices they make. The friend came away with a heavy heart but a renewed understanding of what it means to truly value the people in your life. She realized that while it's natural to chase success and strive for the best, it's equally important to remember the relationships that ground us. Alice's choices were a stark reminder that ambition, when pursued at the cost of personal relationships, can leave a person isolated and lost. In the end, the story poses an important question to everyone. What are we willing to sacrifice for success? And is it truly worth it? The journey of Alice and her friend reminds us that while ambition can lead us to incredible heights, it can also blind us to the things that matter most: love, family, and true friendship. The unspoken struggle, a family's journey through love, loss, and acceptance. In a warm, suburban neighborhood lived a family that seemed like the picture of happiness. The parents were respected in the community, well-meaning and dedicated to their children's success and future. Their home was a gathering place for neighborhood children, where laughter echoed in the backyard, and memories were captured in every corner. This family, a father, mother, and their 3 children, James, Kate, and Stephen, appeared to have all they needed for a happy life. Yet, beneath this peaceful exterior, deeper struggles ran through their lives, ones that would eventually unravel the bonds holding them together. Stephen, the youngest child, was the heart of the family. His birth had brought a renewed sense of joy and completion to his parents, who cherished his every smile, laugh, and question. James and Kate, who were slightly older, adored their little brother and doted on him constantly. From an early age, Stephen showed a curiosity and energy that was impossible to ignore. His questions about life, his surroundings, and the simplest things often left his parents amused and amazed. He was a bright child, and they felt hopeful about his future. However, when Stephen was around 6 years old, his parents began noticing signs that he wasn't developing quite the same way his siblings had. He struggled in social settings, often choosing solitary activities over group play. His focus on particular routines was intense, and any disruption would lead to meltdowns that his parents struggled to understand. Eventually, after consulting with various specialists, Stephen was diagnosed with autism. The diagnosis was a shock to his parents. They had always imagined Stephen living a life free of obstacles, filled with opportunity. To them, autism was an unexpected curveball, but they refused to let it dictate his future. His parents took it upon themselves to equip Stephen with every possible resource. They researched extensively, enrolling him in specialized therapies and programs designed to improve social and communication skills. They rearranged their schedules and invested time, energy, and finances into what they believed would give Stephen the best chance at leading a fulfilling life. But from the start, Stephen resisted these efforts. Even as a young child, he demonstrated a remarkable sense of self-awareness and autonomy. He often expressed frustration over what he perceived as different treatment. To him, every additional therapy session, special accommodation, or adjustment felt like a spotlight on his differences. He longed to be treated like any other kid, to not be defined by a diagnosis that he barely understood. As Stephen grew older, his desire to live life without the autistic label intensified. While his parents saw therapy as essential, Stephen saw it as an unwanted reminder that he was somehow different. This created a tension within the family. His parents believed deeply in the value of therapy, accommodations, and constant guidance. Stephen, on the other hand, began to resent these interventions more and more. He felt that they were a sign of his parents' lack of trust in his ability to navigate life on his own. Stephen's frustrations continued into adolescence. By the time he was in high school, he had grown incredibly aware of his label and how it influenced the way people interacted with him. Teachers, despite their best intentions, would often offer extra time for tests or assignments. Therapists would provide him with strategies for managing social interactions. Although all these efforts were meant to help him, Stephen viewed them as indications that people thought he was incapable. He wanted to be perceived as competent, not as someone who required constant support. When he was 13, Stephen made a heartfelt plea to his parents. He wanted to transfer to a new school where no one knew about his autism diagnosis. He believed that if he could start fresh, he could shed the label that he felt had limited and defined him for so long. To Stephen, this transfer represented freedom and an opportunity to be himself. However, his parents were filled with apprehension. They feared that without the support systems in place, Stephen would face greater challenges. They knew his teachers, school staff, and therapists had created a stable environment for him, and they worried that a new school might not be as accommodating or understanding of his needs. After much deliberation, they ultimately decided against the transfer, convinced it was in Stephen's best interest to remain in a familiar, supportive environment. They hoped he would someday understand their decision as one made out of love and concern. But to Stephen, this decision felt like a betrayal. He was convinced that his parents didn't trust him to shape his own life. This decision, seemingly small, became a turning point that created a lasting rift between him and his family. As the years passed, Stephen withdrew more and more, spending hours alone in his room, avoiding family gatherings, and cutting off friends. His siblings, James and Kate, noticed the change and tried to reach out. But Stephen, hurt and angry, would often brush them off. While he loved his siblings deeply, the unresolved issues with his parents weighed heavily on him, making it difficult for him to form meaningful connections with others. To him, His family's well-meaning support had turned into an unbearable burden. When Stephen turned 18 and graduated high school, he packed his belongings and moved out of the family home. He left behind a letter filled with anger and accusations. In it, he expressed the pain he had endured, his feeling of being suffocated by his parents' constant interventions, and his resentment over the fact that they hadn't listened to his wishes. He claimed that their insistence on special treatment made him feel crazy, stupid, and awkward. He wrote, "I hate you with a passion," words that would haunt his parents for years to come. Stephen kept in touch with his siblings but refused all contact with his parents. James and Kate, now in their 20s, found themselves caught in a difficult situation. They loved their parents and could see the pain they were in. But they also empathized deeply with Stephen's perspective. They understood that while their parents' actions were rooted in love, they may have overlooked the importance of letting Stephen find his own path. Years passed, and Stephen's struggles continued. He tried his best to create a life for himself, but the feelings of isolation, frustration, and resentment lingered. He often spoke with James and Kate, sharing the weight of his emotions, but he remained estranged from his parents. His pain and anger, though softened with time, never fully dissipated. Tragically, his journey came to a heartbreaking end when he took his own life. The news of Stephen's death shattered the family. His siblings, especially Kate, were devastated. They directed their grief and anger toward their parents, blaming them for Stephen's choices. They felt that had their parents listened to Stephen's wishes instead of imposing their version of support, things might have been different. The family found itself at a crossroads, grappling with loss, anger, and a sea of unanswered questions. In the months that followed, Stephen's parents were left alone to process their grief and reflect on their choices. They found themselves questioning every decision they had made, every word they had spoken. Were they so blinded by their own beliefs that they couldn't see the signs of Stephen's pain? Had they been so focused on what they thought was best that they failed to understand his true needs? The tragedy forced them to confront a harsh reality. Sometimes, love means stepping back and allowing others to find their way, even if it means watching them make mistakes. True support is not always about providing solutions but respecting someone's autonomy and trusting their capacity to grow. The loss of Stephen and the estrangement from their other children weighed heavily on his parents, leaving them to navigate a life filled with memories of a son they would never see again and relationships that would never fully heal. This family's story serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities of love and the importance of listening. In our efforts to help others, we must be mindful of their voices and desires, even when they differ from our own. Support, after all, is not about enforcing our perspective but empowering others to find their own path.